I'm Shailyn and I sew. If you've been following me on Instagram, you will know that last weekend I took a fall and I may have injured myself just a little bit. I ended up spraining my ankle and dislocating my elbow, which is why I am now in this bionic looking splint brace thing. If you can imagine, that makes sewing quite difficult. So for today's video, I thought it would be pretty fun to mend the jacket that the nurses had to cut me out of. So this jacket is actually already a patchwork jacket. I sewed this earlier this year out of denim scraps and jeans. I actually really love this jacket despite not being able to wear it very often here in Florida. So when they gave me the option of, do you want us to try to take it off or can we cut you out of it? I did think a little bit about it. Then I moved my arm and it was kind of a no-brainer. Just cut me out of it. On the left side here, they had to cut all the way from the bottom all the way up to the shoulder. And then on the other side, they realized later on that I couldn't take off my jacket without moving this arm. So they had to cut the other arm as well, but they didn't cut it all the way up. So they just stopped right at the top there. So I thought it would be a fun video to come back and sort of hand stitch some of these things together to work on my mobility a little bit, but also I think it would look really cool to hand stitch like my battle scar, just because I kind of think it'd be a cool story. So as you can see here, I've already started ironing the fusible interfacing down on the inside of the sleeve to sort of keep the pieces together. My thought process is that I iron the fusible interfacing down, it holds it together just enough for me to hand stitch everything down. And I don't think, or at least I hope, that the hand stitching is good enough that it won't fall apart while I'm wearing it. So this is all I'm doing now. I figured it would have to be something fairly simple since I can't really do too much, so fusible interfacing it is. Okay, so we are on my couch, and that's because it's a little bit more comfortable than being in my sewing studio. I can prop up my leg, put my arm on something, and my thought process is I'm going to sit on this couch and figure out what stitch I want to do, and then once I finally figure that out, I will probably put a little screen or just skip to it and show you all what stitch I've decided to do once I figure it out. So this is called the Herringbone Stitch. I will basically kind of show an example of how I'm doing the stitch. If you are right-handed like me, it will be easier for you to work left to right because of how the stitch works, and you'll understand why in a second. So you're going to want to start at your first stitch. Since I actually stopped in the middle of a herringbone stitch, I'm just going to start where the next one would be. If you're starting at the beginning, you can start, obviously wherever. So I can start here and then start going across. Alright, so as you can see, since this isn't my first stitch, I'm actually already making a little tiny X and crossing over. But Again, if you're starting from nothing, just ignore this. I'm following this line. You can follow a seam or you can make your own line with this decorative stitch. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going across and I'm making a diagonal, and then I'm going to point my needle that way to the left. Again, like I said, if you are right-handed like me, you'll be going left to right, and then you're actually stitching left. I hope this makes sense. So I'm going to make a big diagonal going across, and then I'm going underneath and I'm doing a running stitch underneath that you cannot see. So that puts my thread above the fabric and behind it, making like a tiny X. See? So now what I want to do is I want to do the same thing at the top, and I want to go across and over a diagonal. And I want to make a little running stitch underneath. So I'm going to go under with my needle and I'm going to pull through. So again, as you can see, that makes my thread come behind this point, and I will make a small X. I'm just going to keep doing that stitch all the way down. Okay, so I have completed the single herringbone stitch all the way to the end, and then at the bottom here I just did regular cross stitches because I didn't want to mess with going across this part right here that says Ring of Fire. It's actually from a pair of pants, but I decided to just do regular X's here. But now that this is done, I'm going to finish this off with what's called a double herringbone stitch, which basically means I'm doing the same exact stitch again, except on the opposite side. So this is what the double herringbone stitch looks like. This is what it looks like when it's not complete. This is just the single herringbone stitch. This is the double. And basically I'm doing the herringbone stitch basically opposite sides of the herringbone stitch. So I'm going to do this crisscross at the top here, that little X. I'm going to do it down here. And then this little X, I'm going to go across. Alright, so we have moved over to the other arm, and if you remember, they didn't cut all the way up. They actually stopped right at the bottom of this mark where the pocket used to be, since this was the back side of a pair of jeans. So they stopped there, and I went back and forth and was thinking, like, should I cut it all the way up to the top and match the other side? But I kind of wanted to, I don't know, ode to the people that helped me and just keep it the way it is. So what I'm thinking is, I have this set of grommets that I bought to make toe caps and stuff, and it's actually been really useful. I actually also used this for other projects at this point, so that's why like some of the colors are a little bit emptier. This is a piece of scrap fabric I had, just to show y'all how to do it. And what you want to do is you want to mark where you're going to cut the hole. And I usually use that, and I'm just going to snip the hole here out. The big key here is to make sure that the hole is not bigger than your grommets. So, and it doesn't have to be exact, it just has to be close. And as long as it's not bigger than that, you're fine. I do it backwards? Oh my god, what if I did it backwards? Oh, I did! Oh, shit. What? I did it backwards. I'm gonna have to redo that whole thing. Aw, man. That was gonna be a good cut with all the little jokes.
Yeah, go get out anyway. So we up.
Okay.
I don't know how to talk back. That's my best effort. Put your back foot forward, and that's what I did.
Alright. So we are doing that again. Good thing we did a test piece, because I would have messed up my jacket.
I'm gonna go in my room, by the way.
So here is my test piece. Again, every time you think you know what you're doing, you should always do a test piece anyway, because this can happen. Mark your little hole where you want to cut your hole out, and cut it out. There is your hole. And so it's the opposite. This piece goes on there, and then you flip your fabric down, so you can actually do it this way. Put that there. So then you take your flat piece and you put it on the back there. And this will hold it down all together to keep it from moving out of place. And then you will hammer it down. And what happens is it will kind of curve it, and that will hold it down so it won't come out. Line up all of your eyelets or grommets to make sure you have enough grommets for your project. You don't want to start putting them down and then realize halfway through or even at the very bottom that you don't have enough. So the set that I'm using here is actually a little different than what I showed the first time, but it works the same way. This piece has the little cone shape that holds all the pieces together, and that goes at the bottom, and then it's the same concept. So you put the piece that has the ridge sticking up down, put the fabric on top with the hole, and then put the flat piece on top, sandwiching all the pieces together. And then you take this piece that has a hole that fits, and you hammer it down. So the difference is just really this holds the pieces from the bottom up, and then this holds the pieces from the top down. So this is where I injured my arm, and this is the side where they cut all the way up. And then this is the other side where I just added the grommets and laced it down. And like I said, red side is the injured side and blue side is the healthy side, kind of like in a video game, so that's why I did it that way. I hope you all enjoyed watching me put together my jacket, and hope to see you all next year. Happy holidays! You're gonna take this piece and put it in the hole so you can see that it fits in the hole.